We have a great pleasure to talk with Peter Gilmer. He's CEO of HumanX. Peter, it's a really pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for connecting with us.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, HumanX brings together AI and the resilience economy in a very intentional way. What was the key insight or gap that led to the creation of this platform?
Sure. So NestX is actually a component of our larger event, which is called the Nest Campus. The Nest Campus is the largest event during New York Climate Week, which is the biggest climate gathering in the world annually. So we're the biggest event within Climate Week in New York from September 22nd to 24th, which is the biggest gathering of the resilience economy in the world. So NestX is a portion of that, like you said, brings in AI through our partnership with HumanX, brings the AI community over to New York Climate Week in a significant way. And what that means is the best startups that are solving problems kind of in the resilience and climate space, the investors, of course, and from a more sort of top-down level, big corporate or private sector solution providers and also their potential customers. So really sort of creating a seamless ecosystem where all of those stakeholders can find each other. And the gap that we're filling is Climate Week is wonderful and it's full of all of the people that you could ever want to be there from a climate perspective and a policy perspective, but they're not at scale. There's a missing link, and the link is there isn't this kind of formal engagement point for the innovation community to come and engage and be part of the conversation about what the next decade of effective resilience looks like. And from the conversations I have, that's a gap that really needs to be filled, particularly in the moment that we're having with AI as the most powerful technology of our time. And we're using the Nest Campus and NestX as a way to bring in the most powerful technology of our time with the biggest investment opportunity of our time, which is the resilience economy.
Truly amazing. And you mentioned moving from ambition to development to deployment. What are the biggest barriers today preventing scalable climate and resilience solutions from being implemented faster?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that one of the things is, you have to know what the solutions are in order to explore them and eventually adopt them. And there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between the AI community and all of the power that AI harnesses and the resilience and climate community. So first things first, let's bring the solutions into that community and let the leadership of the resilience community, and that's corporate leadership, that's people in the public and private sector, policymakers, people at a city and state level and a federal level, let's let them understand the power of AI, and specifically what are the tools that already exist that they should almost certainly be adopting in their day-to-day business practice and so on. So that's part one. I don't think it's a barrier, or if it's been a barrier until now, then I think that we're really well placed to help overcome that. Obviously, politics can be a barrier or lack of political will when it comes to climate and resilience. I think that AI can actually help to overcome that as well, because Al Gore spoke this week at HumanX, at an AI conference, and why was he here? Because he recognizes the power of AI, not just in climate, but in terms of how we kind of build a future-proof society. And so one of the things that he launched and talks about is Climate Trace, and that really uses AI to drive transparency across kind of emissions and pollution. And what that means is you can't hide anymore if you're a big polluter. You can be quantifiably held accountable for the emissions or deforestation or whatever it is that you do. We're in this age of full transparency, and that means full accountability. So I think that, again, what has been up until now a massive barrier for progress, AI is stripping away those layers to hold public and private sector actors accountable for the things that they do or don't do as it pertains to resilience and climate.
Yeah, definitely. AI is often seen both an enabler and a risk. How do you see the balance between accelerating innovation and ensuring responsible development in critical sectors like energy and infrastructure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, that's a great point because we're not saying that AI is this silver bullet that's going to solve everything, you know, but it needs to be part of the solution, right? But also, we're not, we want to have those difficult conversations about the potential difficulties that we face as, I mean, AI, we're in the relative infancy in terms of mass adoption and mainstream use. And the energy usage is a big one, okay? So that's something that we have to make sure that we have the right people in the room to address that because it is a problem, you know? And it's a growing problem as more people, more companies, more entities are using AI for whatever the reason. So yes, we want to have that conversation and we want to be very candid about that. But we also, you know, the AI train has left the station. It is being used on a massive scale and it is going to increase. So we need to solve that energy problem. You know, one of the things is we have the CEO of Marvell Fusion. Fusion is a clean energy source that is really seeing lots of investment, and some of the biggest investors in nuclear fusion is big tech. Why? Because it's a really strong potential clean energy source for data centers going forward. So let's hope that gets nuclear fusion gets to a price point where that would kind of solve the energy problem. So we'll put that aside for 1 minute as a potential kind of downside of AI that we hope gets solved soon. But we also have to put our arms around it because AI is accelerating progress across every sector, I would say. Why wouldn't we use it to accelerate progress across climate and resilience? Which, you know, we're on a deadline in terms of emissions, in terms of decarbonizing, in terms of electric. You know, the world, we're already seeing these kind of huge extreme weather events and flooding and wildfires, and so, you know, things are changing. We're already in it. The sooner we can solve this problem, the better. And AI is a tool that can exponentially speed up our progress across all of these different kind of components under the resilience ecosystem. So there's also a statistic that AI applications alone are going to reduce carbon emissions by 15% annually by 2035. That's great. So that's going to be a major kind of factor in getting us to our net zero target. I mean, simultaneously, you hope we electrify industry, transport, energy, we decarbonize, and we do all these things simultaneously. But if AI can be a driving force to get us a 15% carbon reduction, which is equivalent to the entire emissions from the US, for example, then that's something that we need to put our arms around and really bring it in as part of our roadmap to get us to net zero.
Wow, it's really amazing. And how does NextX aim to connect capital, technology, and decision makers that creates real, measurable impact rather than just conversation?
Yeah. Well, so we partnered with HumanX, and if you've been here for a couple of days, you will be familiar with how they matchmake people. And so we use the same technology. You know, the Climate Week is a huge event of 900 events. It's crazy. And there's no kind of significant cross-section of those hundreds of thousands of people that come that house them on one tech platform like they do at HumanX and like we'll do at NestX. And so, you know, we're going to have 10,000 attendees plus. So we're going to have 10,000 people on one app. That's people all coming from all different backgrounds that are all working on solutions or funding solutions or exploring and creating solutions across the resilience economy. And so we don't want to leave it to chance, much like HumanX really don't want to leave it to chance, that just because you come into a room of thousands of people that are also working on here AI and in Nest Campus are working on something kind of climate or resilience adjacent, you want to leave it to chance that in those 3 days they're going to bump into the right people? Like, absolutely not. But up until now, like Climate Week kind of is like that, you know, but at a much bigger scale. So it's even harder to meet the people that you almost certainly should meet. So we're using the same technology as HumanX. We'll use a sophisticated matchmaking tool so that even before you step into the event for 3 days, we send you a recommendation list of the 15 people or 20 people that you absolutely should meet based on the details that you've provided us for your profile. So ahead of time, you're already going to hit the ground running. And what that does is that just kind of like, if you're fostering those collaborations that you know should be happening, then that just expedites those people's mission as well. So, you know, it's not rocket science, it's just making sure that you're making the most of people's time. And that's one way where we're fostering connections. Again, similarly to HumanX, that we have an investor startup kind of matchmaking platform as well. So the startups will have the chance to do face-to-face meetings that we facilitate with the right VCs and investors, and we do that at a corporate level as well with buyers and sellers, from kind of corporate solution, enterprise, and people, their counterparts that would represent potential customers and clients. So yeah, it's very real the way that we're kind of fostering those engagements and leaving very little to chance.
It's Rude. Looking ahead, what will define successful leadership and the intersection of AI, climate, and the global resilience over the next decade?
Over the next decade, we have to get a long way towards a net zero industry. So in total industrial transformation to net zero, as far towards net zero as we can get. I think in transport as well and in energy as well. I think what's happening in the Middle East right now and what happened and is still happening in Ukraine, when Russia invaded Ukraine, there was like this knee-jerk reaction where there was investment pouring into the energy space to kind of steady the ship. But then the long-term gain for the renewables sector was there was big investments because it showed that there's a real volatility and insecurity around depending on, a few oil states and a few fossil fuel kind of bottlenecks, like we're seeing in the Middle East. And the result of that was a huge spike in investment in renewables, which is great. But then, the world kind of slipped back into its own old ways a little bit, and here we are facing, potentially a much bigger threat to the global energy system. But what that's hopefully going to do is going to put another kind of spotlight on the volatility of our current energy system, our over-dependency on fossil fuels, and put an onus on investing on domestic, secure, clean energy. And there's never been a better time to do that. And we're already seeing the investment pour into the space because consumers want clean energy, they want cheap energy, and so, who doesn't want that? And so I think that the political will is going to shift because people want it, and if the people want it, then the politicians want it. And I think that, hopefully what we're going to see over the course of the next decade is the political will shift to favor clean, secure, domestic energy, good for the people, good for the country, good for the planet. I think that that's where everything will be happening simultaneously in some of those other sectors that you mentioned, but I think energy has to be the kind of the number one priority.
So Peter, thank you so much. It was a really pleasure to talk to you. We are really excited to go to Next X in September.
Well, yeah, and I know there's a lot of great things happening in Brazil in clean tech and climate tech. So, it's a great, I think, Nest X and the Nest campus is a great landing pad. I think there's an assumption that because the US government is on a federal level, let's say, not super enthusiastic about clean tech, but
Yes.
at a state level, a city level, and at a business level, it's happening. It is happening, and they want solutions, and they're doing business, and they're decarbonizing, and they're electrifying. So I would say to the Brazilian climate tech ecosystem, don't think that just because the federal government are adverse to renewable energy, that the rest of American society and business is also adverse to it. They're not. They want it, and if you're sitting on a solution for it, then you should definitely come to the Nest campus.
Yes, definitely. So thank you so much. And we are expecting September's arrive to go to the Next X. Thank you so much, Peter.